Hello students, this is Brock Skaggs and make this video as a demonstration of some basic part modeling activities inside of SolidWorks. And what we're going to try to do is model this rebar chair here. And so you can see some default geometry before you here. And then if we go to sheet number 2, we've got a configuration A. And so really there's not a whole lot changing as far as features go between the default and the first configuration here. Really it's just a matter of changing the values of specific dimensions that are already going to be on the part there. And so we'll just try to make those changes when the time is needed. And so at this point in the YouTube video you do have the ability to, I guess, pause the YouTube video and see the sheet 2 here as well as sheet 1. And so one thing I'd suggest you do if you're working on basically prepping for the CSWA exam or just trying to improve your skill set inside of SolidWorks would be to pause the video right now before I start modeling it live and see if you can model the parts. I'll also be showing the mass properties to check to make sure we arrived at the correct geometry there. And so you could use this as a practice problem as well. And so with that being said, let's get started. First I'll take some notes here. It is ABS as far as material, and we'll be looking at the IPS unit system here. And so I'll go ahead and jump right into SolidWorks now, get a part template going, and we're on IPS units, which is good. So now when I look back at the drawing, you can see the orientation as far as the isometric view goes. Where is the origin located? It's right in the middle of this rib here. And looks like that origin is just in line with this very top side of the rebar chair there. And so that's where we'll be looking at, placing the origin. And so as far as how to create this part, I'm sure there's a number of different ways. I'm going to start first on this middle portion here and create the small 1/8 inch thickness there, and then start branching out from there. And so with that being said, I'll need to start my part on the front view to make sure the origin's correctly placed as well as in the correct orientation. And then I'm just going to start the line tool there, and I believe our first shape is something similar to this, and I'm going to use the 3-point arc tool in here to put this arc just about like that. And so that looks similar to this interior region of the part itself. And so one thing we can need to do is make sure this origin stays centered. And so what I'm going to do to help with that is I'm going to create a construction line. So I'll just go ahead and draw a regular line from the origin to the midpoint. Notice I'm snapping to the midpoint of this horizontal line segment. And then I'm going to make sure that goes to vertical. And so at this point it's still a visible line, a line that would be used to form a boundary of a boss extrude. And so I'm going to left click on it and I'm going to click right here, which is to construction geometry. You can see it becomes kind of the center line type. Long dash long there. And so this is just used for construction. It's not going to be used for forming the boundaries of my cut or of my boss extrude, excuse me. Other things I need to do is ensure that this length and this length of those two lines is equal. And so let's go ahead and grab some dimensions now. First thing, I'm going to dimension that 1.5 on the interior. So I'll just get smart dimension going. Apply it. The next dimension, this height is 1.25. So there's that one. And notice the arc has a radius of 0.5. And so I'll apply that one as well. And then notice this depth dimension here, 0.25 from the horizontal line to the very bottom portion of the arc. And so to do that, what I'll need to do is select the horizontal line here. I'll select the arc here. I have the ability to dimension to the center, but I don't want to the center. I want from this line segment to the bottom of the arc. And so what you have to do is use arc conditions to change that. And so you just have the dimension selected. You go to leaders, and then down under the leaders you'll have arc conditions if you have any sort of arc here. And so here I want the minimum value, which gets me the exact extension line locations that I was looking for. I just pull it onto this side of the parts for a little clarity. Now I'm dimensioning between that horizontal line and the very bottom of the arc. And that needs to be 1/4 of an inch, so I'm just adjusting that value. And you can see here I've arrived at a nice fully defined sketch, so I'll go ahead and start my boss extrude. Here notice the origin is right in the midplane of the part, right in the middle of this feature as far as the thickness direction. So when I go to put this 0.125 inch dimension in for the depth of the boss extrude, I want to make sure I do a mid-plane extrude there to make sure that we stay in the middle of that thickness geometry. And so mid-plane and 0.125 there. And that gets the middle portion of the part. So next I'm going to go ahead and try to create one of these legs, if you will, so we work on the one on the right hand side. And if you also notice here, I have a note saying it's got two planes of symmetry. So basically when I create this right hand side one, I'm just going to mirror it across to create the left. And so let's go ahead and create a sketch so I can create this right hand side geometry here. And so I'll just left click on that face and create a sketch. As far as what the geometry is going to look like on my sketch, it looks something very similar to the outer profile of the right view here. And this one I'm going to actually remove the rounds off, and I'll wait and I'll apply those as a feature at the very end of my part. And so with that being said, I'll have a horizontal line here. Notice the horizontal line is going to be at the very bottom, or excuse me, past the bottom here. There will be a couple of vertical lines. And then I'll have some 3-point arcs in here as well. I'm going to hold off on those for now. Again, I'm going to use this technique to center the two horizontal lines on the origin just by drawing a line connecting the midpoints. I'll go make sure it's vertical, and then I'm going to make it construction again. As far as the overall width of that line, I can grab that from the top view, 1.375. The height of the vertical lines is right here in the right view, 0.35. They are equal in length. So I'll just go ahead and say make this equal. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a 3-point arc in for the right hand side. So just like so. The 3-point arc does have a radius of 2. So I'll go ahead and apply it as well. You can see here on the top hand side I'm kind of inspecting to see what it does as I try to manipulate things, and I don't have it as the midpoint. You can see these geometric relations are coincidence and a horizontal here, and so I'm going to go ahead and hold control down so I can select both the line and the origin and make sure I apply a midpoint relationship here. And then also I believe on the drawing I have some width dimension here at the top to define the length of that line, and it says right here in the right view 0.5. And so with that being said, it looks like I need to dimension the overall height here. And so right here, 1.35 again from the right view. And so one thing you'll notice here, when I basically pause and I'm not quite to a fully defined sketch, a lot of times I'll just start grabbing entities here. And so I'll grab the vertices of a line, or I'll grab the entire line or an arc itself and start moving it around just to inspect how it is defined at this point. And so at this point I could replicate it and draw the 3-point arc on the left hand side as well. But since I've already got a center line right in the middle of the part, I'm going to go use mirror entities. And so the entity I want to mirror is the arc. I want to mirror about the center line right in the middle of my part. And that's the only thing I'm mirroring, so I can just accept the command and it copies it over to the left hand side there. Nice thing about this is when I go to change a dimension, I just have to change it on the right hand side and it updates accordingly on the left. So that makes it very convenient. So everything's looking good at this point. And so here I'm going to extrude it out, and I'm going to extrude it out toward the outside of the part. And you can see here they have 1/8 inch thicknesses on each side there to get to this overall width dimension of 1.75. And so my extrusion depth will be 0.125. So I've got here, it's already got the 0.125 from last time. It is going in the outward direction, so I can just go ahead and accept that. So looking good so far. So let's now go ahead and mirror use this feature, and mirror it across to the other side. And so to do that, I'm going to first pick out my mirror plane, which will be the right plane. Notice I've already got it pre-selected, so when I go into mirror, it automatically populates it into the mirror face or plane box for me. Then for features, I'm just going to select in the graphics area the boss extrude 2 there, and accept that to mirror it across to the other side. So here I can go ahead and check. It looks like I've got the correct isometric view, and the origin's also located correctly for me. So next step on this will be the floor feature. Can have this floor that's elevated off the very bottom datum. And so this floor, I can get all the dimensions I need from the top view here. I'm just going to use convert entities to get these line segments here. And then I'll use a 3-point arc tool to define this 1.75 radius curve there. And then afterwards I'll extrude it up by, it looks like 0.1 from the section view on the, which was usually where the right view is at. And so that is the game plan. As far as plane to sketch on, I don't have a nice plane you can see anywhere there. And so I'm just going to rotate the model and select this very bottom face. And I'll sketch on it. So then come normal 2. Go ahead and use convert entities to quickly collect these edges. And then use trim to trim away the bottom sides. So now we only have the 3 sides here of a rectangle, if you will. And then I'll go ahead and add in my 3-point arc and dimension it with the correct radius, which is 1.75 there. And so that is looking good. I'll go ahead and put in ISO, and you can see I've got this nice closed boundary, of course. And we said we need to extrude that up 0.1 inches. And so I've got a nice fully defined sketch going into boss extrude. Now it's 0.1. And I need to flip the direction. Here I need to go upward instead of downward. So I'll just toggle that. And we are on our way. So we've got the front one here. The back one is still left off. And so here I'm going to use mirror again because I believe I do have a plane right in the middle of the part. Yes, the front plane there. And so I have it selected. I'll select this very bottom feature that I just created. And you can see the preview here allows me to mirror it across to the right-hand side, or the right-hand side if you're looking at it from this perspective, the back side, if you will, of my part. And so going fairly well. So next thing, let's key in on this portion right here near the top. Notice it's a little thicker at the top than the 0.125. It's a 0.15 here, so 25 thousandths thicker. And so we can do that fairly easily. You can tell that from the ISO it's just going to mimic the top portion here, and then it looks like it's offset. And you can also see that in the front view. That offset distance is 0.1. And so a way to do this will be using convert entities, and then we'll use offset entities also inside of the sketch in order to create the lower boundary for us. And so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and get right back on the front plane. I'll create my sketch on the front plane as usual. Then I'm going to use the convert entities. Here we are. I'll select this line segment, this arc, and this line segment. To convert those, now they're transferred into actual sketch entities inside of the sketch. Then I will go offset entities, and you can see just by selecting that one arc it picked up the chain here. I'm reversing it because I want to go inside the part, and we had the offset depth of 0.1, and so it's the default, so we'll just accept that. And so I've already got it started. Now I just need to draw vertical lines to close off the left and right hand sides here. So I have this nice closed area as usual. So now checking the extrusion, needs to be 0.15. It does need to be a mid-plane extrusion to keep everything centered. And so I'll go straight into boss extrude. Here instead of a blind I want a mid-plane, and I want to go 0.150 in order to give me the desired outcome there. So at this point, I believe we are in good shape. The last thing, as far as geometry goes, is the rounds, 0.05. And so you can see here they've got one here, here, similar on the back side, and then again on the far side as well. And so I'm going to do that as a feature fillet. I'll change the radius here to 50 thousandths, and then I'll start selecting the edges. Notice here that since all of these rounds have the same radius, I'm doing it all inside of the same feature. Sometimes you'll see people, for instance here, they would have 8 different rounds because there's 8 edges that they're rounding, but there's really no need for that. It's bad practice to get into, and so here I've got them all inside of a single fillet feature. Last but not least, we need to add material, and I believe it was ABS. So we've got the ABS applied. One final check, and I believe we are in good shape. And so let's go ahead and evaluate this and see. 0.0258 pounds is their mass, and 0, and negative 0.846 for the center mass. Yes, the center mass coordinates also match up here. And so for our default configurations, these are the mass properties that I was looking for. So fairly confident here that we have the correct model made. And so I'll just go ahead and save this. Looks like I misspelled it there, but it should be okay. As our demo part there. And so next thing, let's go ahead and make some changes to this. And so again, depending on how comfortable you are with configurations, you could either just go File, Save As, or you could explore the configuration side of things in order to make these changes. Here, just so I can condense it into a single file, I'm going to use configurations. And so I'm going to use manual configuration, so I'll go to the configuration tab, I'm going to right click the top node, I'll go add configuration, and we'll name it config A. And just get yes to accept display states. And so now that I'm in configuration A, I need to make some changes. One is the overall width needs to become 2. And so the easiest way I find to do that is just double click on the feature that has that dimension. And so that's the first feature we made for this dimension. I've got the 1.5 dimension here, that needs to become 2. Yes, 2 there. And so I'll just right click on the dimension value, go to configure dimension. And so in config A, the value of D1 inside of sketch 1 needs to be 2. And so as you can see, as it rebuilt there, it widened out the part. Next, the overall depth needs to be 2. So it's from very top to very bottom. I believe that was in this sketch, in that feature. So 1.35 needs to become 2. So notice again, I'm right clicking, I'm going to configure dimension, and then I'm adjusting the value in the table. Oh, not 5, but 2. So that gets me there. 1.75 is the next. Notice this looks a little strange at this point. And so I'll get back in here. This dimension from 1.25 needs to be changed to 1.75. Should move that floor piece down, which is good. And then we've got the R3. And so the R3 was here. Just double clicking again, you can see the R2. So I'm right clicking, configure dimension, and changing it to 3. And so I believe those are all the changes that are required for the drawing. Overall width changed, we changed those two heights as well as the radius of that arc. So I believe we are in good shape there. And so nice things about configurations, now you can just of course toggle back and forth inside the same part file. And when we're under config A, the values that we're looking for, a mass of 0.0377 pounds is good. Still 0 and 0 for the center of mass coordinates in the X and Z. And the Y is negative 1.162 roughly. And that looks good as well. So I believe we did achieve what we were seeking there as far as our final geometry. And so, as usual, thank you for watching the video, and I hope this helps you improve your modeling abilities inside of SolidWorks.